Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 29th May 2020, and these are the articles we'll be dealing today. The first article for the day is taken from the Live Mint and it is written by Jasprit Bindra, a technology specialist. So he talks about how decentralization of workforce is going to affect the production patterns and optimization of resources of various companies irrespective of the sector. So this decentralization was triggered by reverse migration of migrant labor. So as a result, the entire supply chains got disrupted, the production patterns got disrupted. Even when there are companies that are ready to open up, we have a situation where the workers are not willing to work, or they sometimes don't have enough work. That is the reason they believe that they would rather go back to their families elsewhere from where they have migrated, so that they can stay with them in these times of crisis. This has forced the agents of our economics, all the economic policy makers, to rethink about how we have to plan our production patterns. And not just in the government sector, it also forced the private sector companies to think about how to handle this labor crisis. So there have been segments of policymakers who suggest mechanization as an alternative for labor. But we have to understand that in a country that is struggling with capital crunch, and when most of the companies where these workers function are MSME companies, they don't have the capital required for mechanization, even if the government gives them enough number of loans, because we don't have the skill or capability to adapt so quickly to this technology, and we don't even have an ecosystem to manufacture all this. If we import capital tools from elsewhere, that would eventually destroy the ecosystem, where there will be labor crisis and there will not be any sort of capacity building in the indigenous industry. So it is against the government's policy of self-reliance. Now in this situation, how do you plan your production patterns and distribution patterns in the short run? So for one set of the companies like IT, fintech, etc., this decentralized working is more or less feasible because of the nature of work. For IT professionals, work from home would definitely be very feasible for most of the companies. In fact, companies like TCS, Google, Facebook, Wipro, all the service providers and product companies that are dealing with softwares or any sort of IT products, they have already announced that they are okay with reducing the office space and allocating more number of time for work from home and for a maximum number of employees. So we had TCS announcing that by 2022 75% of its workforce shall continue to work from home. So in this scenario, we have to look at whether this is feasible for other companies as well, like say for manufacturing or a industry like hospitality. How is this decentralization possible? Because if you take a look at how the migrants reacted in the wake of this pandemic, they have realized that there would be no one to care for them in situations like this. So they are never willing to come back to the cities, because the conditions in cities are no better. If you take the case of Dharavi, which is one of the largest slums in the world, most of the slums in these sort of cities like Mumbai are filled with migrant labor. They don't have any source of avenue to earn income, and they don't even have basic livelihood. They live in very dilapidated conditions where access to food, water, or even sanitation, which is very much required in the wake of this crisis, is lacking. So why would they be motivated to come back to cities, especially in the wake of this fear psychosis that COVID-19 created? So the author believes that decentralization of the workforce should be the way forward for many companies, and the government should create a framework which facilitates the decentralization of this infrastructure. So the author Jasprit Bindra would be writing a series of articles in Live Mint, which I would be covering in then subsequent lectures as well. So for now, he says that the decentralization of workforce is the idea that we have to encourage, and this is not just limited to IT sector, but it can be expanded to elsewhere as well. So what is the impact of this? We can have clean air, we can have livable cities. So all the principles of sustainable development that we are talking about, or the sustainable development goals, will happen because of this decentralization. Whether it is governance or our economic patterns, we have to go for decentralization. The reason why our governments are centralized is because of the close linkage to the economic patterns. We have huge influx of migrants coming to the cities like Mumbai, or if we talk about software professionals, we have a lot of migration from elsewhere to cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Noida. The reason is the production patterns are not decentralized. The author believes that we have to take this idea forward to see its logical conclusion. And ironically, it took a pandemic for us to realize that decentralization is the only way to live a sustainable life. That's the gist of this article. We'll be looking at the series of articles that will be coming in Mint in the next few weeks to cover these ideas as to how this decentralization should happen according to Mr. Jasprit Bindra. That is the gist of this article. The second article for the day is taken from Indian Express and it is titled Drawing Closer in Crisis. So this is about India and Africa relations. So if you take a look at Africa, we have a lot of similarities with Africa. The reason is they have a similar demographic structure, they have a similar pattern of problems, whether it comes to poverty or whether it comes to education, infrastructure problems, or whether it is about healthcare, access to healthcare institutions or democratic institutions. So there are a lot of similarities between India and Africa, and it is considered that by 2063 Africa will be the youngest set of population in this world, and India is set to achieve that demographic dividend in 2047. So in the wake of this pandemic or the COVID-19 crisis, it is believed that India should definitely engage with Africa, because if you take a look at various studies done by IMF, Africa cannot cope without external help. So there is definitely a need of external help, because IMF studies proved that Africa is staring at one of the worst recessions seen in the past 25 years. This is a trend not just unique to Africa but elsewhere as well. But what makes this recession more dangerous in the case of Africa is because Africa is economically a younger nation when compared to other emerging economies. It has not stabilized yet, and it is very much dependent on GDP growth to achieve better standards of living. So for a country like Kenya or Zimbabwe, which are in the nascent stages of their economic development, this pandemic has come as a sort of a setback. So therefore India sees a huge opportunity to engage with Africa, and Indian investors want to invest in Africa as well. However, there is another threat of China. Just like any other place, China has heavily invested in Africa, whether it is in their railway projects or whether in their investment or infrastructure projects. China has gone for the strategy of checkbook diplomacy again, even in Africa. So despite this huge investments, Africans view Chinese with suspicion because of their aggression. So this is an opportunity for India. So India is considering Africa because of other reasons like natural resources. Africa is a home for a lot of natural resources, and it is also a huge market because of its increasing population. In the wake of this reality, India should engage all the regional players in its dialogue with Africa. If you take a look at India and Japan's engagement, India made Japan a partner in the Asia-Africa Growth Corridor. So this was considered to be an alternative for the One Belt One Road initiative of China, and India is trying to establish an alternative mode of development that is independent of China. In this context, the International Solar Alliance is also of importance, and India is trying to leverage this platform as well to create energy sufficiency for all the African countries as well as the countries that are a part of this alliance. India believes that focusing on solar power will allow us to harness the soft power diplomacy as well as ensure that the first step in economic empowerment, that is access to clean energy, will achieve India a significant position in global politics. At the same time, it will also help in achieving the sustainable development goals for various countries, and therefore it is a win-win sort of a situation. Therefore, India must use all its forums. Like, for example, the author quotes the example of quadrilateral grouping or Quad 4, where it engages with various players in the Indo-Pacific like Australia, Japan, to counter China along with the US. So India believes that if they can bring Africa on board in this dialogue, we will be having the tag of net security provider in the Indian Ocean, which is now presently challenged by the hegemony of Chinese aggression. So therefore, time is ripe for India-Africa relations, and the absence of this COVID-19 Africa-India forum that is meant to be held in September would have been a great opportunity. But nevertheless, India should not disengage with Africa more than any other time right now. That is the gist of this article.